Rebecca thought she was asking her husband one simple question. Why doesn't he think she is a good wife? But Zied's answer didn't calm anything down. It made the entire marriage look worse. He said he wanted Rebecca to behave like a real wife. And once those words came out, the argument stopped being about cooking, communication, or spending more time together. Now it was about respect. It was about money. It was about culture. It was about control. And most importantly, it was about whether Rebecca and Zied have ever agreed on what marriage is supposed to look like. Rebecca's defense was immediate. She works long hours. She helps keep the household running. She makes sure the bills get paid. From her point of view, that is commitment. That is responsibility. That is what a wife does. But Zied seems to be asking for something completely different. He wants shared meals. He wants conversation. He wants emotional attention. He wants to feel like he is living with a partner, not simply sharing a house with someone who is always exhausted. So, the argument sounds simple at first. Rebecca says, I support this marriage. Zied says, I don't feel this marriage. But once you look closer, the problem gets much darker. Because Rebecca does not fully trust him. She has talked about monitoring his location. She watches his behavior closely. She worries that independence could turn into secrecy. And when she senses distance, she does not back away. She pushes harder. Zied responds in the exact way that makes her fear worse. He pulls away. He becomes quieter. He avoids the conversation. The more distant he becomes, the more suspicious Rebecca feels. The more suspicious she becomes, the more controlled Zied feels. And suddenly, the question is not just whether one of them is wrong. The question is whether they are creating the worst version of each other. Did Rebecca's insecurity push Zied out emotionally? Or did Zied's distance create the insecurity Rebecca cannot control? And when Zied says he wants a real wife, is he expressing loneliness in the worst possible way? Is he hiding behind cultural expectations because he cannot explain what he really needs? Or is he expecting traditional treatment while Rebecca carries a financial burden he does not fully appreciate? Because this was never really about dinner. It was about whether either person feels valued. And that is why this marriage looks less like one big fight and more like a cycle neither of them knows how to stop. When Rebecca and Zied entered therapy, control quickly became one of the biggest issues. Rebecca was not only asking for better communication. She wanted enough information to remove every possible surprise. She wanted to know where Zied was. She wanted to understand who he was talking to. She wanted proof that his independence was not slowly turning into disloyalty. From Rebecca's side, that fear probably feels understandable. She has been hurt before. She knows what betrayal can do. She knows how foolish a person can feel after ignoring warning signs. So when something feels wrong, Rebecca does not wait. She investigates. She asks more questions. She looks for changes. She tries to catch the problem before the problem can catch her. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Surveillance is not trust. Knowing where someone is does not tell you what they feel. Checking a phone does not create honesty. Monitoring a spouse might give temporary relief, but it cannot create lasting security. In fact, it can make the relationship even less honest. When someone feels watched all the time, normal behavior starts feeling dangerous. A simple delay becomes suspicious. A private conversation becomes evidence. A friendship becomes a threat. And eventually, the person being monitored may stop sharing information because every detail feels like the beginning of another argument. That does not automatically mean they are cheating. Sometimes people become secretive because the relationship has made openness feel exhausting. And this is where Zied's behavior deserves just as much attention. Instead of meeting Rebecca's fear with clear, consistent reassurance, he appears to withdraw. He gets quieter. He leaves conversations. He protects his space. He says less because saying more often leads to another accusation. That may help him avoid one fight. But it creates 10 more questions. Rebecca sees the silence and thinks something must be hidden. Zied sees the suspicion and thinks nothing he says will ever be enough. Now, both people feel justified. Rebecca believes she has to investigate because Zied is distant. Zied believes he has to withdraw because Rebecca is controlling. And that is the trap. Neither person has to be lying for this marriage to become unhealthy. They simply have to keep reacting to fear in ways that trigger the other person. Rebecca's deepest fear appears to be replacement. She may worry that Zied will eventually want someone younger, calmer, less suspicious, or more aligned with the life he expected. Zied's deepest fear may be losing his independence. He may feel that every friendship, movement, or decision has to pass through Rebecca first. Rebecca tries to stop abandonment by holding tighter. Zied tries to stop control by creating distance. But the tighter Rebecca holds, the farther Zied wants to move. And the farther Zied moves, the tighter Rebecca feels she must hold. That is why this conflict keeps coming back. Even if Rebecca never finds proof of cheating, the mistrust remains. Even if Zied shares his location every day, the resentment remains. The real problem is not one suspicious moment. It is how they respond when they do not feel safe. Rebecca tries to remove uncertainty through control. Zied tries to escape uncertainty through distance. Neither response creates intimacy. Then came the campfire argument. Zied complained that Rebecca was not behaving like the kind of wife he expected. He talked about communication. He talked about cooking. He talked about the lack of connection inside their home. Rebecca immediately pushed back. She said she works extremely long hours. She made it clear that the bills do not pay themselves. Other people around them also questioned whether Zied's expectations were realistic. And that is where the argument exploded. Because how can Rebecca work exhausting hours, help support the household, maintain the home, cook regularly, remain emotionally available, and still prove she deserves to be called a wife? That is not one role. That is 5 roles stacked on top of each other. But Zied's biggest mistake may not have been what he wanted. It may have been how he said it. There is a huge difference between saying, "I feel lonely in my marriage," and saying, "I want a real wife." The first statement is vulnerable. The second statement is a judgment. The first says, "I miss you." The second sounds like, "You are failing." And Rebecca did not only hear that Zied wanted more quality time. She heard that everything she already does not count. The long hours do not count. The bills do not count. The pressure does not count. The sacrifices do not count. In that moment, Rebecca was no longer defending her schedule. She was defending her identity. She was defending whether her contribution to the marriage had any value at all. But this is where the commentary has to stay fair. Rebecca paying the bills does not automatically mean the marriage is emotionally healthy. A household can be financially stable and emotionally empty. A person can work hard, provide money, and still become unavailable to their partner. If Rebecca comes home exhausted, sits on the couch, looks at her phone, and has nothing left for Zied, he may genuinely feel alone. That feeling matters. Money cannot replace affection. A paid bill cannot replace a conversation. A full refrigerator cannot replace emotional connection. Zied may not be wrong for wanting companionship. The problem is that he turned loneliness into a definition of womanhood. Instead of saying, "I miss my wife," he made Rebecca defend whether she qualifies as one. That is why the argument became bigger than the original complaint. Now Rebecca is not only explaining her work schedule, she is defending her dignity. And Zied is not only asking for attention, he is defending his entire idea of marriage. This is also where their cultural differences matter, but only if we talk about them carefully. This should not be reduced to America against Tunisia. Not every American marriage follows the same roles. Not every Tunisian marriage follows the same roles. This is about the personal expectations Rebecca and Zied brought into the relationship. Zied may have grown up seeing marriage as a partnership where the wife handled more domestic care and created more daily companionship. Rebecca may view marriage as an equal arrangement where both people adjust according to money, work, and real-life pressure. The deeper problem is that they may have married without clearly discussing those expectations. Rebecca may have assumed Zied would become more independent and flexible after moving to America. Zied may have assumed Rebecca would slowly become more aligned with the kind of family life he understood. Both may have expected the other person to change naturally. But marriage does not fix unspoken expectations. It exposes them. And after 6 years, these expectations are no longer minor misunderstandings. They have become evidence each person uses against the other. Rebecca sees Zied's traditional expectations and thinks he does not appreciate reality. Zied sees Rebecca's schedule and thinks she does not prioritize the marriage. They are not only arguing over household duties. They are showing 2 different definitions of love. Rebecca seems to say, "I love you by working and keeping our life stable." Zied seems to say, "You love me by spending time with me and building a home together." Both forms of love can be real. But when each person only recognizes their own form, both people feel rejected. And that brings us to the financial contradiction. Can Zied expect a more traditional wife while Rebecca works the demanding schedule? Traditional domestic roles usually depend on an entire financial arrangement. If one partner is expected to cook, clean, manage the home, stay emotionally available, and create daily comfort, then the other partner usually has to carry enough financial weight to make that possible. If Rebecca has to work long hours because the household needs the money, expecting her to provide full domestic attention may be unrealistic. But Rebecca also has to face an uncomfortable possibility. Has work become more than a responsibility? Has it also become a place where she can avoid the tension at home? Work gives clear answers. You finish the shift. You earn the paycheck. You pay the bill. Marriage does not work that way. You can put in effort and still feel rejected. You can sacrifice and still be misunderstood. So Rebecca may be genuinely supporting the household while also hiding inside work because home feels emotionally unsafe. And Zied may be genuinely lonely while also expecting Rebecca to solve that loneliness for him. That is why both of them can have valid feelings and still behave unfairly. Rebecca deserves recognition for what she contributes. Zied deserves room to explain that he feels disconnected. But neither person gets to use one contribution to erase the other person's pain. Then there is the power imbalance. At first, Rebecca appears to hold more power. She understands the American system. She has more experience with work, money, and public communication. She asks the questions. She investigates. She may also have more control over how the story is explained because she reacts quickly and speaks openly. But Zied controls something Rebecca desperately wants: emotional access. When he becomes quiet, she does not know what he is thinking. When he walks away, she loses the reassurance she was trying to get. When he shuts down, uncertainty takes over. So, one partner controls information. The other controls emotional availability. That creates a very unstable marriage. Rebecca gathers information to feel safe. Zied withholds access to feel free. Neither behavior creates closeness. It creates a battle over who gets to define the problem. Rebecca says, "Your distance proves something is wrong." Zied says, "Your suspicion is why I am distant." And the painful part is that both may be partly right. That division is also showing up in fan reaction. Some fans feel Rebecca is creating the problem through monitoring, accusations, and emotional pressure. Many viewers are saying that tracking a spouse crosses a line. They believe Rebecca wants the comfort of trust without accepting the uncertainty that comes with it. Because trust always includes risk. You cannot guarantee another person will never hurt you. You can only decide whether their repeated behavior deserves confidence. A section of the audience believes Rebecca is trying to replace trust with control because control feels safer. Other viewers see it completely differently. They believe Zied's emotional distance is the real problem. They argue that Rebecca might not feel this insecure if he offered consistent communication, affection, and reassurance. From that point of view, calling Rebecca controlling ignores what may have made her feel unsafe in the first place. Another group focuses almost entirely on the real wife comment. Many viewers feel Zied cannot demand traditional domestic treatment while Rebecca keeps the household financially stable. They see the comment as ungrateful. They believe Rebecca's contribution is only noticed when something goes wrong. But there is a third group, and this may be the strongest interpretation. This group believes both Rebecca and Zied are feeding the same destructive loop. Rebecca's suspicion increases Zied's withdrawal. Zied's withdrawal increases Rebecca's suspicion. Neither behavior is happening alone. The internet usually wants one villain and one victim. But real relationships are rarely that clean. Rebecca can be controlling and still feel neglected. Zied can be distant and still feel suffocated. One person can be wrong in one moment and sympathetic in the next. The hardest truth may be that both are hurting each other while believing they are only protecting themselves. Some fans also believe the conflict has been exaggerated for television. That opinion became louder because Rebecca publicly celebrated their anniversary after filming. But a happy anniversary post does not prove the problems were fake. Couples can love each other and still have serious issues. They can smile online while avoiding resentment at home. They can celebrate another year together without solving the reason they almost fell apart. Reality television may increase the pressure. Editing may make certain moments feel bigger. But production does not have to invent a problem that keeps returning on its own. The better question is not whether every scene happened naturally. The better question is why the same conflict keeps surviving every fresh start. Rebecca's fear of deception has been part of this relationship from the beginning. Their age difference attracted concern. Their religious and cultural differences created tension. Rebecca's history made her more cautious. Zied had to build a new identity in a country where Rebecca already understood the rules. Even moving to Tampa did not erase the pattern. The location changed. The emotional problem did not. And that is one of the biggest warning signs. A couple can survive a hard chapter when the conflict comes from a temporary situation. But Rebecca and Zied's conflict looks structural. It is built into how they communicate. It is built into how they handle fear. It is built into what each person expects from marriage. Rebecca reacts to uncertainty by investigating. Zied reacts to pressure by disengaging. Those behaviors may have helped them protect themselves before. Now those same behaviors are damaging the relationship. Another warning sign is how differently they describe the same home. Rebecca talks about work, responsibility, and sacrifice. Zied talks about loneliness, distance, and lack of companionship. It almost sounds like they live in two different marriages. And when two people describe the same relationship in completely different ways, it usually means they are no longer listening to understand. They are listening for evidence. Rebecca hears Zied's complaints and looks for proof that he is ungrateful. Zied hears Rebecca's defense and looks for proof that she does not care about his emotional needs. Every conversation becomes another trial. Each person arrives with arguments. Neither person arrives with curiosity. That is why another apology will not be enough. Another hug will not be enough. Another anniversary will not be enough. If the structure stays the same, the cycle will restart. They need clear agreements about phone privacy. They need clear agreements about independent time. They need clear agreements about friendships. They need clear agreements about household responsibilities. They need clear agreements about money. They need time together that does not begin with an accusation. Most importantly, they need to stop using labels. Rebecca cannot reduce Zied to a suspicious husband who must prove himself every day. Zied cannot reduce Rebecca to a woman who fails his definition of a wife. Labels create shame. Specific needs create solutions. I need more time with you is specific. I need reassurance when plans change is specific. I need privacy without being accused is specific. I need more help financially before I reduce my work hours is specific. Those statements can lead somewhere. Calling someone controlling or saying someone is not a real wife only closes the door. So, what happens next? Based on their public behavior after filming, Rebecca and Zied may remain together through the immediate outcome of the season. That is an interpretation, not a confirmed spoiler. Public posts and appearances suggest the marriage continued after filming. But staying together does not mean the problem is solved. Some couples stay because the love is still real. Other couples stay because ending the relationship feels more frightening than continuing the conflict. Rebecca may fear that walking away would confirm every warning she received from family and viewers. Zied may fear losing the life and identity he built in America. And both may still genuinely love each other. That is what makes their future difficult to predict. They do not look completely finished, but they do look exhausted. The most likely outcome may be another recommitment followed by the same conflict returning. Phone privacy will come back. Work schedules will come back. Female friendships may become another source of suspicion. Household expectations will return. The fight over independence will return. Rebecca will ask whether she is appreciated. Zied will ask whether he is trusted. A breakup becomes more likely if Zied keeps asking for independence while Rebecca keeps reading independence as rejection. It also becomes more likely if Rebecca continues carrying financial pressure while feeling emotionally judged. But therapy could still help them name the real problem. Instead of saying Rebecca is simply controlling, they could recognize that she fears abandonment. Instead of saying Zied is simply detached, they could recognize that he fears losing AUT.